All right, VDL folks, this is the final PR of the regular season. This is the post week 8 power rankings video with Sakimoto. I've got Gumi here, and I've got Batista.
Hello.
Hi.
So, like usual, we're going to go into the match. We're going to talk about the previous matches that occurred. We're going to go through the top 24 based off of the council's ratings, the rigged ratings, and then we're going to do talk about a playoffs a little bit. So I guess we should just hop right into it. Do you want to talk about the first match? Anybody? Ice Q's?
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start. This was the match where the SQs finally brought their Toxapex. Their Toxapex did a lot of work, actually. It just kind of ended up just not dying at all. It just stood there, recovered. I think it ended up being burnt both games, but it just slowly recovered. The SQs had kind of a weird set. They gave it Toxic and then Merciless to guarantee crits. In the end, I think that didn't really work out much. I think it probably would have been better as Regenerator because the match was just really focused on switching and positioning a lot of the games. And yeah, like I think at some point someone said that I think there was more turns of just people switching out than actual turns of damage being dealt.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't incredibly important to the rankings, but it was actually a pretty fun, like, week 8 match. I felt like, yeah, this whole time, Gert's been talking about Toxapex, trying to make Toxapex unkillable. And so seeing the game where it got to shine was pretty cool for week 8.
I was glad that Toxapex came out, and I thought this is just kind of where the Ice Cube shine, I think, is like when these games. I don't want to say he controlled the pace of the game, but when Gert is able to play slowly and constantly switch and just chip down his opponents, he's really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
But both these teams were, I think, guaranteed playoffs, so,
Yeah.
they're just kind of duking it out for fun, trying some things. I don't know. Anything else to say about this match?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, we're going to kind of go through these a little quickly so these PRs aren't too long. So the next match, the Drowzee Dracozolts, they beat the Royal Kingdras 2-1. The Dracozolts, I believe, squeaked into playoffs with this win. So the Moody Artillery came to town, and I didn't actually watch this match, but I heard the Artillery went ballistic.
Yeah, I know at some point, game 1, the Artillery ended up getting +6 defense and +6 special defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had like -3 attack, -3 special attack, like -2 speed, something like that. It just got all defensive boosts somehow and just was unkillable, basically.
And
Yeah.
with the thing about Moody is since you're increasing a stat by 2 and dropping a stat by 1, if like the longer you're Moody, overall your stats will be higher, like theoretically. So if you gain a bunch of defense at the beginning and you have a way to heal, that can be really frustrating because you can slowly gain like attack stats while not losing as much. It can be kind of deadly. So that's kind of crazy that happened.
Yeah, I think overall, Moody Artillery has actually been really good for Masenko. So
yeah,
it just especially with Dylan's team where he definitely has a bit more like stall stuff. He has that Registeel, of course. Having that way where he can just recover, he can get those defense boosts. Actually seemed like he used it pretty well. And yeah, this 2-1 was absolutely massive for the playoffs because two other teams ended up with the same differential, and was an interesting tiebreaker. But ultimately, the Dracozolts getting this win was pretty big for them, and they got the playoffs. So
big win for the Dracozolts. The Kingdras, I think, fun fact, I think they won all of their matches this season 2-0, and all the ones they lost 1-2.
yeah,
So they have
literally perfect differential.
They have the perfect differential, yeah, for the record. All right, well, next game we have Batista in here. So you want to talk about your match?
This match was pretty sad. I think my statement is this is a good representation of my season, which is match one. I was in a commanding position. I win the game 97.2% of the or 0.5% of the time, and they end up getting a double protect into me missing a triple axle into a crit. That all were necessary for them to win the game. And then game two, I got destroyed by and I got destroyed by what's it called, a rocky helmet on Hippowdon, which ended up killing my Weavile from 50% because I had triple axle, and I was in pretty good position out before until that. And so pretty much losing game one from bad luck or slightly misplaying, and then game two losing because of tech. So pretty good representation of my season.
I thought you really needed that game one, honestly, because that just looked like a set that was going to go to game threes. I mean, Incineroar is kind of annoying to deal with, especially with like Drain. I think he had Drain Punch on it, and like U-turn, Regenerator, Tornadus is a great bring against your team, as well as the Rocky Helmet was really nice. But knowing that information, you could have maybe duked out a game three, and that would have been interesting. But unfortunately, the game one, you just had that bad luck.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the big ones I wanted to bring game three if I would have gotten there, and I think would have been pretty good, is I had Guzzlord in the back, and I just didn't bring it, and I think it actually would have ended up being very good into their team.
Yeah, overall, I felt like, it's just been a rough season for both you and Calopsia. And so, I get like, with that luck, it just definitely was kind of rough. But game one was played pretty well on your part. And then game two, Rocky Helmet against Urshifu teams can be really solid sometimes. And then with that triple axle, that Hippowdon came pretty much in clutch. So, yeah.
That was kind of like the most ideal way for that to happen for him. Like, the Rocky Helmet was almost meant for the Weavile.
Yeah.
I mean, your entire team is, not your entire team, but a lot of your team is physical, but so it just seems like a good item, especially for like a potentially it's healing Hippowdon, but especially against a Weavile who's definitely going to want a triple axle into it. That was a good bring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we'll hop on into my match. I also took a loss this week to the Sun Warriors. This match was one of the most fun matches I think I've played this season, or this I don't know, in the VDL. It was so tight. I really wanted, like, first glance prepping for the Sun Warriors, I was like, I know he's gonna bring some interesting stuff, and he's not just gonna have like a plan A and bank on it. He's gonna he preps deep. So, and I really thought the Doug trio could be really interesting, but I don't think, like, the week went by and I didn't really have a plan for the Doug trio as much anymore, and so kind of regret leading that game one because he was really prepared for it. He just kind of doubled it with a Snarl and a Moonblast, I think, and just took care of it. Was intimidated, didn't really do anything. So kind of regret doing that. But game two was I think represented the games 2 and 3 represented the match a little more well. I think it was just like an all-out weather war. I mean, we were just trying to, constantly have weather control. His Exeggutor wants to be energy balling my Politoed, while my Moltres wants to be hurricaning in the rain his Exeggutor. My Bronzong is a really good answer for Lele, but at the same time, it's Stinksing in the sun against the Ninetales. Like, it was just a battle of positioning, trying to make reads. And I thought the Sun Warriors played great. I had a really hard time. Like, there was a couple moments where I thought I was going to make like some big reads and turn the tide of the game, and he didn't let that happen. So, props to Chad.
This was like a really pivoting heavy, prediction heavy match, and it was so fun to watch. It's honestly one of the best matches I think I saw this entire season. It was definitely high stakes for both of you, and I think it I think how the match played out showed that, right? That Chad really wanted that first seed, wanted that win. You wanted that first seed, you needed to get a win. And so it was absolutely epic weather war. And yeah, one of the coolest matches I think I've seen all season.
I really liked watching Chad stream back and seeing when I revealed the Scarf Moltres and he figured it out. He's like, "Boo! No, Scarf Moltres!" He was so upset about the Scarf Moltres. But the Scarf Moltres was the last second addition to my team, and it looked really good.
Yeah.
Fun fact: max speed Moltres with the Scarf speed ties a max speed Executor in the sun.
Oh wow. Yeah. I thought that was why you brought Moltres, right? It was just that sun. And I love Scarf. I love Scarf Moltres. I brought it before. It made me so happy to see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I let you down. I got the loss, but yeah, maybe I should have gone. Maybe I should have gone Rocky Helmet. I don't know. Probably not, but yeah, I think it was really well played by the Sun Warriors, and the Umbreon was just a monster, and he took out my Poliwrath. He took out my Poliwrath game 3, and I had absolutely nothing for the Tauros and the Umbreon, especially. I was just toast, but I was really good at him to recognize that and just go for it, take it out.
Yeah. At one point in the stream, he said that he thought he was losing, in game 3, but then I saw Umbreon and I was like, I don't really think with Snarls, and I think both your mons there were special attackers. Was like, I don't think Saki wins this, and then Umbreon came in clutch, and it's been a really good mon for Chad's season. Like it's put in a ton of work for him. So yeah, it was really powerful in this match.
It was.
Yeah, I agree. Well, yeah, when I was watching, I also thought the same thing. I'm like, yeah, he was Chad was definitely really like, oh, I think this game's lost, and I'm like, the only way that Saki wins this is Perish Song right now, and Saki ended up not running Perish Song on the Politoed, and I'm like, yeah, that definitely sounds about right, because yeah, the Umbreon pretty much 3v1'd at the end.
Yeah, it did.
Which it can definitely do, especially against a special team like myself. I didn't bring the Parasong because I thought the Bronzong and the Poliwrath could handle it, but then I was so focused on winning that weather war that Chad, he mixed it up game 3, and he brought what was good against my team but weak against the Poliwrath and the Bronzong, but I didn't bring the Bronzong. It was like a really good game 3 position for him. Because I just didn't bring the Bronzong, and then it just really well played. I thought it was interesting seeing his match too. How he kind of after game 1, he's talked about trying to expect me adjusting and expecting me to bring the Moltres. It's exactly what I did. I brought the Moltres, and then game 3, he brings out the Umbreon, and I'm not prepared for it. I thought it was really well played, like as a set altogether from him, not just like in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Fire, absolutely fire match.
Yeah, fire match, great team. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, so let's move on to the Whale Lords versus Rebellion. Not the hottest season for Rebellion.
Yeah. I don't know. So this match kind of, I think, shows a pretty good side of what kind of Rebellion season's been. His team has been very passive, very like setup based, and this game was very much like that. He had the Blissey, he had Appleton and Thwacky, both with Leech Seed, and he had Stunfisk with the trapping move. I can't remember what it's called. And so like he tried to be like very stally and very like grindy, but the Wellords ended up having Calm Mind, Tapu Fini, Dragon Dance, Steelix, and they just kind of set up in front of the the stally component of Rebellion and just kind of killed them. Yeah, so I definitely think that Rebellion maybe needed a little bit more offense, and that was kind of what ended up happening in this matchup.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Gooby.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah, I feel like in general, Rebellion has just focused a lot on modes like Blissey, and I feel like he was just lacking some creativity this season, and especially with like the Grassy Seed Blissey, like it's stuff we've already seen. He's brought a bunch of times, and I think Matrix capitalized on that, and also had like the really cool Dragon Dance set, stuff like that, where he was able to capitalize on, I guess, kind of the obviousness of what Lucian was going to bring.
Yeah, I think that's like I think Lucian was very experimental this season. Last season, his team was completely. It was like a 180 of a team because last season he was running games where 4 of his Pokemon that he was bringing, they were running. He would run like 3 choice items in AV, and that'd be one of the games he would play. But now he's like all stall. Like that is the strength of his team this season, is like stalling. So it's just I think it was he's trying to mix it up, try something, and I think it worked well in some matchups, but also I think Reggie Alecki is awkward to use. Like, it doesn't really mesh with a stally team. It's different, but I think it just works better on a hyper offensive team. And I think the Blissey with the grassy seed, like you said, it was just kind of obvious that it was coming a lot of the time. And there was
I think that's the big thing that kind of ended up happening with Rebellion. I think Rebellion started off really well, and then I think the modes and the style of play that his team was focused on became common knowledge by everyone, and so his team became just worse with regards to people knowing what to expect and understanding what the matchup is based around.
Yeah, and I don't know, not a great season for Rebellion. He wasn't smoking too many boots this season, but the Whale Lords, I think we had talked about this in the council, that the Whale Lords, like, the beginning of the season, I think they had a losing record at one point, but their team just looked, and we know Matrix is good, and their team just looked way too good to be one of the lower ranked teams, and so it feels almost right that they're up here with a winning record, going to playoffs. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like I think this is the second season where Matrix has kind of started a little bit rough, right? 1-2, 0-2 stuff like that. I think season 3, season 4, I think he might have started 0-3 and then came back. Like, he's one of those guys that, like, you can never count out. And I feel like this season, he just really, really showed that. He took some big wins against Goomer. And yeah, he was able to be in playoffs. And again, I feel like that's 100% deserved, because he's a really solid player, and you never count him out.
I would agree. Well, I guess we'll hop into the next match, which is the Beantown Barnacles versus the Bolton Bashers. Goomer talked to me about this matchup, and he was saying, a few weeks ago, he talked to me about this matchup. He said, I think I can, if it comes down to week 8, I think I can take on Theo. And then week 8 comes, and he's talking to me, and he's going, I'm prepping for Theo, and this is a nightmare. And he's like, I have no idea how I win this matchup. So I don't know why, it took him until week 8 to realize that this matchup was kind of crazy, and it was going to be really difficult for him. But yeah, I know Goomer prepped a lot, and he just had to bring some interesting things some surprising things in order to beat Theo. It's a lot of teams are good, but no team's heat proof.
Yeah, I was at one point in the week, I was thinking about, like, just doing a video going over some of the matchups and stuff that were really important, and I was just like, I want to see this matchup, and I was sitting there and I'm like, man, Goomer might be out of playoffs. Like, it just looked so incredibly difficult, and if I was in his position, I think I'd lose 10 out of 10 times. But Goomer is a master when it comes to prep and knowing what looks good. And so having that curse team more, which put a lot of work game 3, and a bunch of other stuff, like, he prepped so incredibly well. And, it was good enough to where he was able to take that 2-1 win. Really, really impressive.
Yeah, again, we saw the Heatmore. Like, the Heatmore it really hasn't been a meme. I mean, he's not memeing with it. He's bringing it because it looks good in some of these matchups, and it's doing work. Like, once that Heatmore got set up with the curse, it was actually pretty vicious. I mean, it was took out the Barracuda with a crit. I think it does like 80% to it without that. I mean, I think it OHKOs a lot of what's on Theo's team aside from the wheezing.
Yeah. One thing I've realized, because I've also had a T5 do really well on my team, was, like, you start out and you, like, experiment it, you use it once or twice, and then you realize that this mod actually looks really good on your team. And so I think about, like, when I think about Heatmore, I think it's just, like, it pairs really nicely with Goomer's team. And it's a little hard to explain, but it's just when you prep against it, when you look at it, it does actually look really good, even though it's a tier 5. So I think he, and for me, same thing with Sharpedo. It wasn't conscious to make a team that was good with Sharpedo, but it just fit really well, and I think that's why it's done incredibly well on Goomer's team. And yeah, I mean, brought him to the playoffs now, so we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. And I was gonna say something else with this matchup. I learned a lot from just watching this because they were both very close games. Who needs Power Whip? Just run 3 moves. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all you need.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah.
But honestly, watching Game 3, it's possible that Goomer would have Power Whipped into that Barraskewda and it switched into the Wheezing, so Bulldoze is actually better. I wonder if he would have went for that, so maybe not having Power Whip was actually better.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a glitch with Showdown where sometimes when you when you change moves, it can actually just erase a move for some random reason. And it's happened to me a couple of times, and so I think that's a possibility if he was building on Showdown, where it just accidentally deletes a move and you just don't realize it, right? So yeah, I actually think that it might have actually been worse because of that challenge you were talking about, where Theo did switch into Wheezing, and he probably normally would have gone for a power up there, but actually having 3 moves helped him. So it's possible that it did actually matter in a weird form of luck right there. So
it was very, very well played and very well approached by Goomer in the matchup. Not to take away with what Theo's done or his season. He has a very terrifying team, and he had I would say pretty successful season.
Yeah, agreed.
And the best thumbnails you could ask for. Best Pokemon sprites. Well, this next one is yours, Goomy.
Yeah. So, this was X-Drixon, who's the coach of the Luxury Uxies. We go way back, and we're pretty good friends. So, this week I wanted to win because I wanted that first seed, but I also wanted to meme a little. So I brought stuff like Quick Claw, Ditto, which didn't come. But yeah, the thing about his team was he has a pretty interesting and solid Hail team. And I'm obviously very weak to Ice, but I have things like Garchomp that actually do pretty well against its Ice mode because it's an Ice Steel and an Ice Rock. And then, so yeah, my whole plan really going into it was kind of lead with Tornadus and Ludicolo, and that way I could fake out a Talonflame and stuff like that. And so yeah, he leads game 1. He goes Urshifu, Talonflame, and I go Ludicolo, Tornadus. So I end up just fake outing the Urshifu, and then I get Tailwind set up, so we both have Tailwind set up. But I had the Copa Berry Ludicolo, which worked really well, and from there I was able to get my rain stuff up, get Ludicolo going, and then Heracross in the back just looked really well against his Hail mode. And so I went Heracross to Garchomp, won game 1, and then game 2 I believe I did the same thing with Ludicolo, but this time I mixed it up by faking out his Talonflame, and I flowcharted it in a way that even if he had Quick Guard, I could actually stop him from getting Tailwind up no matter what, because I could Tailwind with my Tornadus and then taunt. So I had that going for me, and I stopped him from getting Tailwind up, and and then after that I pretty much just cleaned up because Tailwind was pretty important for that matchup. So yeah, pretty clean 2 games, and it got me the first seed in my division, which I was pretty happy about.
A big win. The season leader, season champ.
Yeah.
Is Batista still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Well, yeah, no. So this match was 2 weeks ago. I'm not gonna lie, I do not remember much of it. This was done Monday of the previous week or 2 weeks ago, right?
That's true.
Yeah, it was done really
of week
early.
7. Yeah. And so definitely a little bit. But one of the big things I think is Heracross seems very good into their team is because their hell mode is because their hell mode's got 2 4 times weaknesses to fighting, which is a really big deal. And one of the reasons why Ninetales is so high rank compared to the other hell setters because it's one of the hell setters that doesn't have a fighting weakness.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think that's one of the things with like his team is like he kind of changed up his team and he had the hell mode too. Yeah, just the fighting weakness is pretty big, and so yeah, capitalize on that. And I mean, I've really loved Heracross. I think it's like top 5 in the kill diff or something like that. It's pretty high. It's in the top 10 for the kill diff. So yeah, it's been really cool. I know it's Womble's favorite fighting type, I think. So yeah, been enjoying it, and yeah.
All right. Well, this next game was a bit of a blowout. The Trixie Tricos took on the Los Angeles Infernapes, who Infernapes they picked up a couple wins later in the season, but they couldn't finish it out. I believe they ended the season 2-6, if I'm not mistaken. But I forget what the Tricos actually brought.
So
That was-
the game 1 was it's like Thunderous Theron was the big one. It did very good damage into most of their team. I believe they had the like Kling Klang, which did a little bit of work, but I think it ended up missing an attack, and that's the reason it died. But it was pretty much a thunderous sweep once it was able to get into the position. And I think this one of the games, I think it was game 2, there was like an awkward play where the Infernape set up Trick Room with the Pokemon in the back being Dragapult, which outspeeds the entirety of the Tricos teams. And so it was a little bit awkward game 2 because of that. So like, they set up Trick Room and then had the fastest Pokemon in the back.
Yeah, Dragapult, not a Trick Room Pokemon, I would say.
Yeah, and then I think basically what ended up happening is Walrein under Trick Room was very good, but normally you want when you set up Trick Room, you don't want the Pokemon doing really well in Trick Room to be on your opponent's team.
Very true. Typically not. Sometimes. Not really though.
So Gumi, anything you thought about the match?
I don't actually think I watched the match, so yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those matches that I think the Tricos kind of had the favorable lead each game and then never kind of wavered from the lead.
They didn't let up. I feel like Otto's pretty good at that too. Like he kind of gains.
Oh yes, I agree.
He kind of gets momentum and he knows how to just keep the pressure on and just slowly lean in and just till you collapse. So, yeah, a pretty good week. End of the season by the Tricos. We all know Otto's kind of insane, so not surprised to see him up here in the getting a win in week 8. I guess the next match we can talk about the Somerville Scraggies took on the MK Mimikyu. Mimikyu had a pretty hot season. They won 2-0.
Yeah, and this was a really important match for the Scraggies. The Scraggies had a win and end with this match, and they sadly couldn't get there. I know game 1, my takeaway, I don't know how important it was, but I definitely felt like the Mimikyus had a lot of really good luck on their side. I think they ended up getting two of 2 Scald Burns with the Starmie, and then I think 2 of 2 Moonblast special attack drops on the Whimsicott, which all of those were very relevant. Because I think a special attack drop on the Gengar ended up preventing a KO on, I want to say it was the Haxorus, but I wasn't positive. I can't remember exactly. But I remember like those combinations of burns and special attack drops ended up making what I think would have probably ended up in the Scraggy's way, or at least made it very very close. Kind of made the Mimikyus have a pretty comfortable win game 1.
Yeah, I don't even think I saw this match. Not gonna lie. Hearing you talk about it, I don't remember seeing a Haxorus this week.
Well, the Haxorus did not do too much. The Haxorus ended up getting pretty quickly killed game 1 and then wasn't brought in game 2. Game 2, the Mimikyus switched up their game plan, but the Scraggies kind of kept with their same game plan. But the Chandelure did a lot of good damage on the Mimikyu side. And I think it ended up getting like a heat wave burn as well. Like they had a lot of reasonable luck on their side, from my recollection. But I also think that it ended up being this little bit weird. The Stoutland had Intimidate instead of Sand Rush, and so it even though they brought the Gigalith, and many times I felt like the Stoutland needed to outspeed their opponent's team, but was too slow because it had Intimidate instead.
What base speed is Stoutland? Do you know?
I think it's 85. I think.
Yeah, I think it's like 80, 85, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that is pretty big because, yeah, I think of Mons like Chandelure are also like the 85 range. And yeah, Samrush is pretty big, especially going against something like a Whimsicott with Tailwind, right? Is having something like after you Stoutland, could have been a possibility, or just getting stuff like Snarls up on Chandelure and Whimsicott, and that Starmie as well is pretty big. I think another thing I thought that was cool was just the Golisopod, getting KOs on Gigalith and stuff, and a strong water is really solid against Tyler's team. So I thought that Golisopod was kind of cool. Glad to see it get some love. So yeah.
I love Golisopod. I wish you don't know how many times I've tried to come up with strats that work well with its ability, but it's just hard. Cool, man.
Weezing Golisopod's going to be my draft next season.
Dude, in Dynamax, that'd be awesome. I've always wanted to do something like that, or do something like where you, I don't know. I've come up with all these strats.
See, I've used it in my bug draft team, and it was great. I really love the Pokemon. I think the idea is you just need to have priority moves. It has Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet, and First Impression. Just focus on those, and its ability is great because you kind of switch it out after a hit. And so obviously or have it in Trick Room. I think those are kind of the big ways to abuse its ability, because normally it's bulky enough to be able to take one attack without dying, so you can kind of switch it out and save it for later for future First Impressions.
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly bulky. Like,
oh, it's so bulky.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. Like, you'd think that 50% leaving would be so bad, but like I've seen plenty of scenarios where emergency exit like wins games, right, and stuff like that. So it's obviously not like an ideal ability, but I definitely think it's a bit underrated. And yeah, I mean, I got slapped by Golisopod last season when Garrett used it against me, and after that, I realized like it is actually a pretty strong mon in the right conditions.
It is. I mean, it's I always wanted to make it into like a Dynamax sweeper, but it has like the worst ability for that. But if you use it for the utility, I agree, it can actually be a really good Pokemon. And like you said, if you give that thing an Assault Vest, it is so stupid strong. Like it has 125 base attack, I believe, and 140 base defense. So if you just give it an Assault Vest, that thing is hard to kill, and it's powerful. I love that Pokemon. Good job for the Mimikyus, taking the 2-0. Somerville Scraggies, I'm sorry. Somerville Stoutlands, sorry. Our next match I did watch was the Massachusetts Manitans took on the Georgia Gurchins. This one was really cool because it had some really, really nice tech, especially from the Gurchin side. In order to deal with the Pikachu and the Celesteela, they went for the skill swap with the Meowstic, and then they could also discharge with their Zapdos and then give, so they could avoid the Lightning Rod of the Pikachu and then also give the boost to their Meowstic and avoid damaging their Meowstic. That was a really, really nice play. This is the second time this season we've seen, and with two completely new, different Pokemon, we've seen some really cool discharge stuff, discharge Lightning Rod stuff from the Gurchin. So, I think they've had a lot of creative sets this season, and I like that they're being successful with it.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that combination of skill swap, Lightning Rod and discharge was really cool because, you could use Pincurchin as a Lightning Rod user, go for discharge with Zapdos. You could do the skill swap on the Pikachu. Another thing, I don't know if his Pincursion had discharge, but it does get it, I'm pretty sure. So you could go Meowstic, skill swap the Lightning Rod from Pincursion on the Meowstic, then discharge. So there's just a lot of really, really cool combinations that he had there. And so I thought it was really smart, especially against the Manitans team that doesn't actually have very many resistances to electric. And something like Tingrowth that does is a little bit annoyed by something like Zapdos being there. So yeah, overall, I thought it was just a really cool tech, and it helped him get the win and secure that first seed.
Yeah, it was not a great matchup for the Celesteal, honestly.
Well, yeah, I think that's the big aspect of what the Gurchins did. I think the main game plan of the Manitans was kind of to be able to outstall their Zapdos and the Pincurchin and stuff with the Celesteela with a Lightning Rod user next to it. And this getting rid of the Lightning Rod on the Manitan side completely made their game plan useless. And then the Zapdos kind of just was really hard for them to deal with and was able to do a lot of damage without having any, concern with its ability or, damage output.
So good job by the Gurchins. I think their prep won in that game, to be honest, or that match. The final match this week was the Arcanines against the South Korean Swords. I don't think I saw this match either, to be honest. Anybody see what happened?
Yeah. So this was one of those matches that was very much another weather war of the a week. It was the SARS with the sun kind of versus the hell mode of the Arcanines. So that was definitely a big, big idea of kind of what was happening. And then there was also kind of a trick room component of it in addition to that, with trying to get up trick room on the SARS side because they had Wishy Washy and Copper and like so it was definitely a very interesting match in that aspect. It was very positioning, trying to get the right weather up, trying to get in or out of trick room. The Choice Scarf Latias was exploited pretty well by the SARS. They pretty early on identified the Latias at Choice Scarf, and then they were kind of able to get into positions where Latias couldn't do much because they switched in awkwardly, or they protected the only Mon who's the move the Choice Scarf could hit.
Yeah, for sure. Overall, Vish was the key here for Dan, where if he had Hail set up and he had Vish, it can KO Zard pretty easily. The only thing that resists water on his team, I think, is Wishy Washy and Venusaur, but obviously you can just Ice Cold Crash the Venusaur. And if you have something like Vanilla sitting up Hail, you can get a freeze dry onto that Wishy Washy, right? So Hail was really important for Dan. And the Swords did a good job. Game 1, Game 3, trying to just get that pivoting in, get their Sun in, so that they could win with stuff like Zard and Venusaur, because Zard also looks really good into Dan's team. So it really was a matchup of, pivoting Sun, Sunny Day stuff with Fight Part, all that stuff. Where, yeah, it was a pretty cool weather war right there. So, yeah.
And then the other thing that I guess is worth mentioning is the Comfy on the SARS side was really good. It ran Synthesis this week to heal itself. And so it ended up being really good at stalling out attacks and making the Arcanines have to waste a lot of their damage into Comfy because it had both Synthesis to heal itself and not Healing Pulse, the Floral Healing. Yeah, there we go.
I did see this actually, yeah.
To heal their allies, and with the grassy terrain from the Rillaboom, floral healing heals so much, and so kind of get into the situation. I think Game 3, namely, where they had to waste so much damage output because Comfy healed so much of itself and on its ally.
Yeah, that's important, I think, as well, because with Arctivicious Vicious Rend, having stuff where you can have that priority and where you go first is actually really important. So it was a really good idea from the source end, right? Is not only does it heal yourself, heal your allies, but it literally also stops damage. Like reduces the damage that like fish does to you, for example, even if there is hail up. So yeah, pretty solid stuff right there.
Well, that's the end of us discussing the matches that just happened. We had the Stabilize and the Pogging Porygons. They did not end up playing, but they were, I believe, they were both out of playoffs. So
yeah, they're both out of playoffs. The Porygons were 3-4 going into the week, and the Stabilized were 2-5 going into the week. The Porygons could have ended up 4-4, but their plus minus was never going to reach the +1 that was needed to make it to the tiebreaker.
So I guess we will move on to the other things we have planned. We've got the top 24 right here. So you can see it. Is this? This is this week. Yep.
Yeah, this week is very similar to last week. Some of the most notable change I think is the Norwegian Dermanitans moved up quite a bit after they beat me, going up to like 18, and the other than that, there was not much changes. I think 1 through 5 remained identical. 6 and 7 flipped, and I think like the Well Lords, the Bashers, and the Kingers kind of rearranged orders, and that's about all that changed. So it's very similar to last week.
Yeah, for sure. Because the season was just finishing up, I feel like there was stuff where it's a lot more clear who's at the top, who's at the bottom, because there was only one, like, it was the last game to be played, right? So, yeah, not surprised to see little movement overall.
Yeah, the one thing that's noteworthy before we switch on to the next thing that I'd like to say is that the Beantown Barnacles ended up actually getting top 12 on our power rankings despite not making the playoffs. So, Barnacles, y'all did really well. We thought that you were in the top half of all the teams. We're sorry you missed on, the tiebreaker.
Completely agree. I thought they had a great season. And
yeah,
I didn't want to play them, so
it was honestly a little annoying that there was a tiebreaker, because I feel like the 3 teams that did tie were all really good in the terms of they could all do something in playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So seeing the Barnacles have to leave was pretty sad,
Yeah.
But it does mean that 4 teams from our division, Saki, me and you, our division, made it to the playoffs. So maybe that's the reason I did badly, is because our division was so good.
That's true. Sapphire P. Is that our division? That's our division, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So we're moving on to the playoffs. And here are our first seeds. The Georgia Gherkins, which were the hottest team, and they were undefeated for a while. They were still, they kind of just ran their division the whole season. I don't think it changed. Same thing with the Pretzels, I think. I think you were top seeded in your division, I think, the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think, other than the first weeks, I think I was first the entire time. Except for maybe week 6, but yeah, I think I was first the entire time. So, yeah.
Sun Warriors actually started out 1-2. They had a losing record, and then they won 5 straight. So, and then they clinch out first seed. So, big time late season. Well, I don't want to say late season surge because it started back in like week 4, but yeah, way to close out the season and clutch out the first seed against me, who was the other first seed. I barely squeaked ahead of Gert just by taking a game off the Sun Warriors. So me and Gert had the same record, same differential. I just had the head-to-head to him, so that's the only reason I'm first seed. So, yeah, barely squeaked it in that first seed spot.
And y'all get the bye the first week, which is, hopefully going to increase the likelihood that one of y'all make it to the playoffs or to the championship, because I would want to see y'all in the championship, since y'all are some consistent veterans of the league.
Yeah, but never made finals.
And this is a true bye week. And you know why? Because Normally, if there was a week off, I'd be prepping for my match. I'd just be like, this isn't a week off and then a week of prep. This is 2 weeks of stressful prep. But I don't even know who I'm playing. So, me and Gumi, me and you both. We don't know who we're playing, so it's kind of hard to prep. So we really can't, which is nice.
Yeah, but I feel like a break is nice, at least for me.
Absolutely.
It was a really tough season, I think, overall. And getting first seed was not easy whatsoever. So taking the break, man, I'm more happy about the break than the bye. Like, straight up.
And congrats, because you're the season champ. Gold pretzels.
Yeah, pretzels.
Pretzels. My advice, eat pretzels. You'll be better at Pokemon. Second seeds and the wild cards, which are essentially, they just have to, they play this week. That's all. That's
yeah. So how the slide is set up, the teams above are going to play the teams below them. So the Mimikyus are playing the Kingdras, the Blazikins are playing the Dracozolts, the Escues are playing the Bashers, and the Tricos are playing their Wellords. And so the boss side of the second seed is that you play a worse team in air quotes, because every team in these 8 teams are really terrifying. And I could imagine any of these teams winning the entire thing. So second seed and first in wildcard doesn't do much, in my opinion, because I'd be terrified playing any of these teams. And I played a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's guys like Jilin, Goomer, Matrix, Masenko, all in the wild cards. And it's like, those are 4 really strong players. Like, and they're the wild cards. They're the guys who barely squeaked in. So, yeah, I mean, being a second seed versus wild card isn't that much of a difference,
And these are going to be some of the best matches of the season. Just looking at these matchups, these are going to be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are I think, did the Mimikys play the Kingdras this season? I think they did. I thought they did for some reason. Maybe I'm confused. But that's going to be a great matchup. I know that the Tricos did play the Wailords, but that's going to be a fantastic matchup.
That's
because both their teams are very tricky, very, very deep. Yeah, that's going to be insane. I mean, all these matches are going to be insane. And I get to sit back.
Okay, well, let's go into the specific matchups. We can, if you go to the next slide, we can see them.
Here we go. Mimikyus and the Kingdras. I guess we probably shouldn't dive too deep into these matchups, but I guess like first impressions. I mean, what do we see? What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, my first thing is that I look at the Mimikyus team and I look at Dylan's team and I'm like, Mamoswine looks really, really interesting here, really, really solid, and Chandelure looks really, really solid. So, the thing about Mamoswine is you look at a lot of his mons, and they're either weak to ice or ground. However, one thing that is interesting about Dylan's side is that you have stuff like Azelf that isn't is immune to ground and obviously doesn't take much from ice. And you have stuff like Pelipper, for example, which is same thing. So, Dylan definitely has some stuff there, but you look at Jolteon, Landorus, stuff like that, and you see Mamoswine looks pretty interesting here. Also good versus Registeel. And I also like Chandelure because if you like get rid of Rain, I think Chandelure actually looks pretty solid here against stuff like Registeel, Beartic. And it's just a lot of damage in general because of that high 145 base special attack. So those are like my 2 mons on the Mimikyu side that I'm like, I want to see those mons do some work here.
Yeah, no, my big interpretation is that the Registeel seems a little bit. There seems like a lot of answers to Registeel, and the Kingdras have had very good success when Registeel has been brought, and they've had medium to bad success when Registeel hasn't been brought. And so, just off of history, because the Registeel doesn't look great to me, I kind of agree with Gumi, where I think the Mimikyus maybe have a slight edge.
I would agree with that. I think the Registeel has been kind of the captain of the Kingdras team, and there's a lot of answers on the side of the Mimikyus. He's gonna have to bust out some other spicy Pokemon. Maybe we see the Marshtomp. Maybe we see the Jolteon. I don't know. The Azelf could come. The Fletching. The Choice Band Fletching. We haven't seen it yet. Probably won't.
Choice Band Fletching is like best. Like auto win, man.
But this also might be one of those weeks that are matches that become another weather war with maybe sunny day Whimsicott with Blossom and the rain with with Pelipper and Beartic. So it definitely can be a very interesting match, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, our next match, Blazikins taking on the Dracozolts. We've said this many times throughout the season. Thought the Dracozolts were underrated from the beginning. Apparently, Masenko's a great player. I didn't know him prior to this season. His team, he's used it really well. I think he's proven that he's a playoff contender. And I think his team, like the Blazikins, I think have a much stronger. They're just the top heavier team. Like they have a terrifying Entei, Articuno, Rotom, Duraludon, Blastoise. But Masenko, you really don't know what he's going to bring. He could bring any of the Pokemon on his side.
Yeah, for sure. It does actually seem like a pretty even matchup overall, I think. I mean, one thing that's notable is Blazikins have Piloswine as a ground type and no fighting type. And so something like Stakataka actually looks pretty interesting here on Masenko's side. And so yeah, I feel like their Trick Room mode actually looks pretty solid here. Which is really important because Stakataka just has so much physical bulk. So even something like Piloswine, because it's not fully evolved, doesn't have the best attack set. I think Stakataka looks really interesting here. And yeah, Masenko is a solid player. Definitely deserves a playoff spot right now.
Maybe we'll see the Pangoro pop out again.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I definitely looking at the matchup. This team that draws me in is definitely the Dracozolts. I feel like they have a pretty the Blazikins don't seem a great answer to their Trick Room mode, and also don't have a great answer even to, let's say, like Rubambi Speed Swap. And I definitely can see some Pokemon doing very good on their side, and so I definitely like that side from my first impression.
Yeah, agreed.
I would agree, and I think the Dracozolts have. I'm not a player who likes to rely on Trick Room heavy teams, and this is a Trick Room heavy team. But at the same time, the Dracozolts have a style of team that I really like, which is I have 11 viable mons. You have no idea what I could bring. I have so many different combos that do not stick out super obviously. You really don't know what to prep for. It's really, really hard to prep against this team, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree with that entirely. I could imagine them bringing any of their 11 Pokemon to this match specifically.
Yeah, for sure. At the same time, though, I will say, Ems is a really good player, and I think I look at this and I'm like, even though I think Masenko has the team matchup, Ems can be pretty crazy sometimes, can bring some good stuff. So, I am really excited to see this match because I think both sides can bring some cool stuff. And even with the matchup advantage to the Dracozolts, I still think Blazikins have a solid shot.
I absolutely agree. I think, last season I played Ems in Week 8, and I thought I had a great matchup advantage into her, and she just kind of said, nah, I think she 2-0'd me. So I know Ems is just, I think her play is very consistently good.
Yes, 100%.
And you can never, the second you counter out, she's just going to, just roll you. So this is gonna be a fun. All these matches are gonna be so good. Oh man.
Oh yeah, all these teams are amazing. All the coaches are amazing. I'd be surprised if we have many, if any, blowouts at all. I think these are all going to be really close matches, and the only way that close is a match is going to be some crazy tech that no one ever saw coming.
Absolutely agree, and that's what we live for. That tech.
Yes.
That's draft Pokemon, maybe. This one is going to be wild because these are some wacky teams. We have Gert, who has he has so much utility on his team and so much bulk, insane amount of bulk. At the same time, he's got Blaster Blaziken and Primarina, which is a nightmare to deal with. Gert just has mons that are just so annoying to deal with on the right team, and I think they complement each other well. like the Curdilly protecting the Blaziken. And he has a lot of switch in for things. He has 2 electric mons, but a lot of ground. He has the Skarmory and the Cresselia against ground mons. I think Haunter gets Levitate as well. He's got a lot of stall potential. Like he can easily have a game plan that relies on setting up a Pokemon to 1v4. That's very much a team. That's something that Gert's team could do. At the same time, the Bashers we've seen, they're almost impossible to prep perfectly against because you never know what they're going to bring. And they bring things that are strange but very, very useful. It's almost like he knows, like Goomer knows what you're going to bring because he brings strange things that kind of counter what you want to do. And it's just really hard to prep against him. You kind of just have to, you almost have to bring something to throw him off in order to do well.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. So looking at this, I think the big thing that screams out to me is I think this match is going to come down to the Primarina and how the Bashers handle the Primarina specifically. The Bashers don't have any Pokemon that scream, this is an answer to Primarina, except the Arcazult maybe. But the Escues have Lightning Rod, Togedemaru, so it's kind of in the situation where I think that Primarina is going to be the key piece, and the Bashers need a clean answer to it if they're going to win this.
I mean, Swords Dance Tingala, man.
Grassy Glide, Swords Dance, Grassy Glide, Tingala.
Easy, yeah. Just max it. Yeah, I really think that like this is the matchup that I'm really excited for. Like, there's gonna be so much wacky stuff. And yeah, I mean, I would say that as Batista said, I think when it comes to Gert's side, I think the Primarina is really solid, especially with Togedemaru. I'd also say I think Cresselia looks pretty interesting here, just because the only 2 things that I see that are like really, really good against Cresselia are Hydreigon and Arctozolt. And so, when I look at that, I'm thinking like a good Trick Room here, or just like a Stolly Cresselia could actually be pretty bad for Goomer. So those are my like two main takeaways. And I do think Gert has a matchup advantage, but as we saw last week, like that doesn't mean anything to Goomer, So we'll see.
Absolutely. This one, gosh, this is going to be so good. I'm ready for that tent. All right, well, let's move on to the final matchup, the final wildcard second seed matchup. Tricos versus the Wailords. This was a heavily anticipated match, wasn't it? This is what didn't Matrix want this rematch?
Yeah, he really did. He, it seemed like he wants this win, I think as badly as you can want it. And yeah, I think this is his match to win,
I mean, it's hard. Like looking at the Tricos team, like their team is so deep, and I think it's a team that Otto has enjoyed playing this season. He's gotten to utilize a lot of different things. He drafts mons like Unpheasant and Kling Klang and makes them look pretty good, aside from Kling Klang having 30% accurate gear grinds. Sandaconda's looked really dope. I mean, he knows how to analyze a matchup and brings mons that people don't really use and can do well with them. Kind of like Goomer's done with Heatmore. At the same time, the Wailords have made like a Steelix look incredibly strong this season. They have a super deep team. How do you deal with like misty terrain plus Skeptile things plus probably the best upfront like support, like 2 inner focus mons like Mienshao with Fake Out and Crobat with essentially a free Tailwind. He can set Trick Room. I mean, up front, the Wailords are essentially immune to Fake Out. And they have their own Fake Out. They have just a lot of support tools and a lot of utility on the team that's really hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with it all.
Yeah, for sure. This matchup actually looks a little bit wacky because there's not one thing that I look on both sides and I'm like, that looks incredibly well.
Yeah.
I look at like it looks like a pretty weird but even matchup, I think, overall. So I'm interested to see what's the approach, what's the strategy going into this match. Because yeah, it's just like there's not one mon on either side where I'm like, this looks incredible.
One thing that's really interesting about this matchup is when they played each other earlier this season, the Wellwards brought 4 Pokemon, and 2 of the 4 Pokemon they brought are no longer on their team. So in their earlier match this season, they had the Darmanitan and the normal Mr. Mime. And since then, they've traded both of those away. And so the Tricos have a lot less information than the Wellords do on kind of the Pokemon that might be brought.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because in rematches, there is definitely a lot of like mind game type stuff, kind of just what's my opponent going to bring. So that info game actually is really important when it comes to Matrix's side. Otto just doesn't have as big of an advantage when it comes to that rematch, right? So, and because Matrix has already lost, he knows what, generally speaking, does look good against his team. And so on top of that, having Otto not necessarily knowing what approach Matrix is going to take because of those trades is also actually a pretty big deal, in my opinion.
This is going to be... I honestly have no idea what to expect here.
Yeah. This is my match of the week, though. All the matches look great, but this is going to be something
insane.
else.
Yeah, this is
this is definitely the one that I have the least strong feelings on, like what matchup is the best and who I want to get, But when in doubt, go with Otto, because they always seem to win somehow.
Otto, just bring money, water, Golduck. You'll be fine. This is a matchup that looks like on the side of both players, they're gonna have smoke coming out of their ears trying to prep for it. Like, it just looks like one of those where you're thinking about the matchup all week, and like 5 days later you have 2 Pokemon on Showdown with half a set made. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I feel that completely.
Yeah. So it's gonna be fun. We'll see what they do, though. I'm gonna sit back and watch them. End of the slides. Not really. Is it the end of the slides?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is. Never mind. There are slides after this, but they're old slides. We're not going to use them.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess this is the end of the power rankings video.
With a little bit of predictions of this week, and so hopefully these are some good matches, and hopefully you don't look like idiots when it comes to our next week's video.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Peace out until next week, and good luck, everybody, with the matches.
Thank you for watching, everyone.
Bye.